The waitress whispered, "Don't sign that." What the billionaire did next shocked everyone. The grand ballroom of the Royal Crest Hotel glittered beneath crystal chandeliers. Wealthy investors, executives, and politicians mingled around elegantly decorated tables. At the center of the event sat billionaire entrepreneur Ethan Carter, a man known for building one of the largest technology empires in the country. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration. After months of negotiations, Ethan was finally ready to sign a partnership agreement worth nearly $500 million. Reporters crowded near the stage, cameras ready to capture the historic moment. Everything seemed perfect. Almost everything. Across the room, weaving between tables with a silver tray in her hands, was a waitress named Sophie Miller. Unlike the wealthy guests around her, Sophie worried about paying rent and helping her sick mother with medical bills. She worked double shifts at the hotel and rarely paid attention to the business deals happening around her. But tonight, something caught her attention. As she served drinks near a private lounge, she accidentally overheard a conversation. Two men stood behind a partially closed door. One was Ethan's business partner, Richard Blake. The other was a lawyer Sophie had seen earlier. "We'll control everything once he signs," Richard said quietly. The lawyer nodded. "He'll never notice the hidden clause until it's too late." Both men laughed. Sophie's heart froze. She wasn't a lawyer, but she knew enough to understand what she had heard. Someone was planning to trick Ethan. She wanted to ignore it. After all, who would believe a waitress? But the more she thought about it, the more guilty she felt. Minutes later, guests gathered around the signing table. The contract sat in front of Ethan. Reporters raised their cameras. Richard smiled confidently. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "this partnership will change the future." Applause filled the room. Ethan picked up a pen. Just as he lowered it toward the paper, Sophie rushed forward carrying a tray. As she placed a glass beside him, she leaned slightly closer. In a voice barely louder than a breath, she whispered, "Don't sign that." Ethan paused. For a second, nobody noticed. Then he slowly looked up. "What did you say?" he asked. Sophie's face turned pale. Richard immediately stepped forward. "Sir, she's just a waitress." But Ethan's eyes remained fixed on Sophie. She swallowed nervously. I think you should read it again." The room fell silent. Guests exchanged confused looks. Richard laughed loudly. "This is ridiculous." Yet something about Sophie's expression caught Ethan's attention. She wasn't seeking attention. She wasn't smiling. She looked terrified. Ethan set down his pen. "I'll take another look." Richard's face tightened. "There's no need. Our lawyers already reviewed everything." "Humor me," Ethan replied calmly. The billionaire began turning pages. At first, everything looked normal. Then he reached a section near the end. A tiny clause buried among dozens of pages. His eyes narrowed. He read it again. Then a third time. The clause transferred significant control of future company assets to Richard's organization under certain conditions. Conditions written so vaguely they could be manipulated later. Ethan's jaw tightened. Without warning, he stood. The room instantly became tense. Richard forced a smile. "Is there a problem?" Ethan slowly closed the contract. "Yes." The smile disappeared from Richard's face. "What kind of problem?" Ethan looked directly at him. "The kind that involves fraud." Gasps spread throughout the ballroom. Reporters immediately began recording. Richard's face turned red. "That's absurd." Ethan handed the contract to his legal advisor. "Read page 73. The advisor scanned the page. Within seconds, his expression changed. "Oh my God." The room erupted into whispers. Richard suddenly looked nervous. "There's been a misunderstanding." "No," Ethan replied coldly. "There's been a betrayal." Security guards stepped closer. The lawyer who had spoken with Richard began quietly backing toward an exit. Ethan noticed. "Stop him." Two guards immediately intercepted the man. Guests watched in shock. Moments earlier, everyone had expected a celebration. Now the deal was collapsing before their eyes. Richard tried one final defense. "Ethan, we've been friends for years." Ethan nodded. "Exactly why this hurts." Then he turned away. The partnership was officially cancelled. Within minutes, journalists rushed to report the scandal. Investors whispered among themselves. Some couldn't stop talking about the mysterious waitress who had prevented a disaster. Meanwhile, Sophie quietly returned to work. She hoped nobody would notice her. Unfortunately for her, Ethan wasn't finished. An hour later, as guests began leaving, a hotel manager approached her. "Mr. Carter would like to speak with you." Sophie's stomach dropped. She followed the manager into a private conference room. Ethan stood near a window overlooking the city lights. When she entered, he smiled. "You saved me $500 million tonight." Sophie shook her head. "I just told the truth. Most people wouldn't have." She looked down. "I wasn't sure you'd believe me." Ethan laughed softly. "Honestly, I almost didn't." For the first time that evening, Sophie smiled. Ethan gestured toward a chair. "Sit down." She hesitated before sitting. "Tell me something," Ethan said. "Why risk your job for someone you've never met?" Sophie thought for a moment. "My father taught me that doing the right thing matters, even when nobody is watching." Ethan nodded thoughtfully. "What happened to your father?" "He passed away 5 years ago." "I'm sorry." She smiled sadly. "He was a good man." The billionaire sat quietly for a moment. Then he asked another question. "What are your dreams?" The question surprised her. "My dreams?" "Yes." Sophie laughed nervously. "Nobody's asked me that in years." "Then I'm asking now." She took a deep breath. "I wanted to study business." "What stopped you?" "Money." Ethan leaned back. "That's all." Sophie blinked. "That's all." He smiled. "Money is usually the easiest problem to solve." The next morning, Sophie received an unexpected phone call. She was asked to visit Ethan's corporate headquarters. Certain there had been some mistake, she arrived wearing her best outfit. Inside the massive building, she was escorted to the executive floor. Ethan greeted her personally. Then he handed her a folder. Confused, Sophie opened it. Her eyes widened. Inside was a full scholarship to one of the country's top universities. Tuition, books, housing, everything covered. Tears filled her eyes. "You can't be serious." "I'm very serious." She stared at him. "Why would you do this?" Ethan smiled. "Because one honest person saved hundreds of employees from losing their future." Sophie couldn't speak. For the first time in years, hope felt real. But Ethan wasn't finished. "There is one more thing." She looked up. "We have an internship program." Sophie's eyes widened again. "You're offering me a job." "I'm offering you an opportunity." She laughed through her tears. "I don't know what to say." "Try saying yes." "Yes." Both laughed. Over the next 4 years, Sophie worked harder than she ever had before. She studied business management, graduated at the top of her class, and became one of the most respected young professionals in the company. Employees admired her. Executives trusted her. Most importantly, she never forgot where she came from. Years later, Ethan stood on a stage introducing the company's newest executive director. Thousands of employees watched. The audience erupted into applause as Sophie walked forward. Elegant, confident, and successful, she looked nothing like the nervous waitress from years ago. Ethan smiled proudly. Many people expected him to talk about profits and growth. Instead, he shared a different story. "Years ago," he said, "a waitress whispered 4 words that changed everything." The crowd listened closely. "Don't sign that." Many employees smiled because they already knew the story. Ethan continued. "That moment taught me something important. Intelligence matters. Experience matters. But integrity matters most." The audience stood and applauded. Sophie felt tears forming once again. Not because of the promotion. Not because of the success. But because one small act of courage had changed her life forever. And in a world where many people stayed silent, she had chosen to speak. That choice saved a billionaire. It exposed a betrayal.